Hi, my name is Michael Hearst, and I am not the father of this baby. This is Eve Rose Gonson, daughter of my friend Claudia. But I'm not here to talk about babies, I'm here to talk about music. I started playing music when I was 7 years old. My mother insisted I take piano lessons, and I had a very scary piano teacher whose name I won't mention. She had really long, veiny fingers, and I rebelled and did not want to take piano lessons at all, and finally my mother let me quit. And about 10 years later we read in the paper that she hired someone to try to kill her husband. Yeah, that has nothing to do with this interview at all, but it's kind of fun. Do you want to take the baby?
Sure.
So I actually do have a degree in music composition from VCU in Richmond, Virginia, which people now know about because they made the Final Four in basketball this year. Before that, no one knew who VCU was. But the degree, helped me get a job working at Hohner, which is where they make harmonicas and accordions. And in fact, my friend Joshua Camp, who's also in the band One Ring Zero with me, the two of us worked at Hohner for several years. I was the harmonica technician, and he was the accordion technician. This is true. Aside from tuning these instruments 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, once in a while we'd poke our heads up from our stations and fire rubber bands at each other or make noises on the intercom system. While we were working at Hohner was when One Ring Zero started. We both shared an interest in strange musical instruments and ethnic music, Jewish music, Eastern European sounds, and kind of started the band based on that in 1999. More than anything, we collected weird musical instruments. Both of us had done a fair amount of traveling already to Europe and Asia, and anytime we saw something cool, we'd buy it and bring it home. And also thrift shops, we just bought everything and anything that we could find. And I happened to have a little studio, basement studio in my house in Virginia. And so on, I guess, like Saturdays, once a week, we get together and try to record a song from start to finish, using as many of these instruments as possible. It was funny, when the band first started playing live in Richmond, we had very mixed response. I think some people immediately got it and thought, this is great, this is so out there and different and so weird, not like anything else people had heard. And other people were, I remember a friend of mine's father just immediately said, this is bullshit. It wasn't top 20, that's for sure. In the spring of 2001, Joshua and I moved to Brooklyn, but within a few weeks of living in Parkside, Brooklyn, while walking around one day, I discovered this little store, which just happened to be the original offices for McSweeney's Publishing. And I handed the owner a copy of one of our early CDs, and almost immediately he asked if we'd be willing to perform at some of their literary events. It hadn't occurred to me how incredibly boring a reading can be when it's just 3 or 4 people getting up and reading with their faces buried in a book. So it was the idea of adding a musical element to make it a little more interesting that was what brought us to that whole scene. And we ended up playing at readings just about every week for McSweeney's, and kind of quickly became known as the McSweeney's House Band, which led us to the idea of, why don't we ask some of these writers to write lyrics for us? And in 2004, our album As Smart As We Are came out, which featured lyrics by 17 of North America's finest writers, people like Rick Moody, Paul Auster, Margaret Atwood, Jonathan Hames, Jonathan Lethem, about 10 other Jonathans, and of course Dave Eggers and Neil Gaiman. So I've also started releasing stuff under my own name. And a few years ago, I decided to do an album called Songs for Ice Cream Trucks, which could have also been a One Ring Zero album. I was tired of hearing the same ice cream truck songs over and over again and thought it was time for someone to write some new jingles. So I did a whole album of ice cream truck songs. And a couple amazing things happened. One was that, to my surprise, ice cream truck drivers were contacting me and wanted to use them on their trucks, and there's now 50 plus ice cream trucks out there using these songs, which is awesome. And more recently I've been working on songs for unusual creatures, which sort of inspired by Camille Saint-Saëns' Carnival of the Animals. It's all these bizarre animals, real animals that exist, like the Magnapinna squid and the dugong and the ai and the Chinese giant salamander, which have inspired me to write songs for each of them, instrumental songs. And that has led to a book deal with Chronicle Books. There's a book of unusual creatures coming out. Ultimately, I love sort of working on projects that have very specific themes. You know, whether it's authors or unusual creatures or ice cream trucks. And actually the next One Ring Zero album is going to be this really fantastic book that Black Balloon Publishing is putting out. A full-size book with 120 pages. It's called The Recipe Project. And we've asked many of our favorite chefs to provide recipes for us, which we are setting to music, their stylistic choice, and singing the recipes word for word. People like Mario Batali and David Chang and Tom Colicchio and Chris Costantino, Issa Chandra Moskowitz, figure throw a Jewish name in there for Jewcy.